Servus Männer, it's Red Pill Germany again. This is a brief update before the election tomorrow to our federal parliament, the Bundestag. The last polls are in, and in the last days there has been some movement. The question is, of course, does it even matter, and for who does it matter? Let's revisit what happened last year before we get into the current numbers. As you might remember, during the time when the pandemic was on people's minds to a much larger degree, the Union parties CDU and CSU were scoring very high in the polls. For some reason, Germans liked the fact that they were promoting and enacting severe lockdowns on the population. But then when the vaccination became available to more people, that became less of a threatening scenario for them. And then the people remembered, what was happening 2 years ago or 1 year ago? Yeah, the Green Party, climate change, right? So the Green Party becomes important again. Then the Green Party choose the worst candidate imaginable just because she is a woman, and they ignored the second worst candidate that would still be or would have been much better. And this is not me saying this. They explicitly said, yeah, we're a feminist party, so of course the woman gets to be candidate. And now they are in free fall. Their numbers are still currently going down in the polls. And what did the normies do then? Then they remembered, wait, the SPD, well, they're ruling also now together with the CDU, and Mr. Scholz, the finance minister, is actually vice chancellor. And his really bad scandals are too complicated for us to understand anyway, and it involves a certain tribal bank, and it is one year ago or something since the media reported about that. So he must be a really good guy, because recently we haven't heard anything bad about him. So let's vote for this guy. I explained these fickle normies and their way of thinking and their way of jumping from one far left but perceived centrist party to the other in a video that I made recently. And I also explained a year ago why Mr. Scholz is a ridiculous candidate, because his own party doesn't like him. Yes, the SPD, they went even further to the left, and not really working class left, but champagne bourgeoisie left. What people don't realize is that Mr. Scholz, as bad as he might be, he is still perceived as a centrist, but the SPD, which is the party that they get by voting for him, has become a truly far left party. They are talking about nationalizing companies and confiscating money from the rich and from the evil corporations. They are a far left party by now. Anyway, and what happened recently? Let's jump into that now. Recently, in the last week or so, the CDU was gaining ground once again, and the race is really tight between the SPD and the CDU-CSU. In one very recent poll by the group Allensbach, the CDU-CSU is scoring only 1 point below the SPD. So that is within the margin of error, but that is just one polling institute. In all the others, they have, I think, 2 or 3 points difference, but it is still very close and on the order of the margin of error, at least as far as I know, for these polls. So now the question that you saw on the thumbnail, does it even matter? Well, I talked about that a lot in recent months and years even. In the West, in many countries, our political system became basically a one-party pseudo-democracy. That means that yes, just like in the GDR, the Soviet-dominated eastern part of then divided Germany, of course you had several parties. You had the bloc parties. You didn't just have the Socialist Union Party that is now called Die Linke after several name changes. No, you had other parties just as well. And they were, of course, gatekeepers. They were controlled opposition, and they were not allowed to actually influence the politics of the country. And sometimes they were even run by SED members. But they were just instruments to keep an eye on these people that didn't want to be in the Union Party, and to, of course, keep up the appearance of a democracy, of a system in which the citizens actually have the option to choose between several different ideologies or parties or styles of politics. And in many Western countries, it became this way. And you see that the only party that doesn't fall into that category in Germany that I see right now is, of course, the AfD. And you see that because whenever they, just like in Thuringia or in Sachsen-Anhalt or in Saxony, somewhere in the eastern part of Germany, when they now score really well, like 20-25% or something, and normally they could easily form a coalition with the CDU, and sometimes you even find members of the CDU party that see some overlap with the AfD, then all the other parties, and these orders come from very far up, they come sometimes from Berlin and sometimes even from outside of Germany. The order is that all the other parties have to, even though they don't have anything in common or not too much in common, they have to form a coalition so that the AfD cannot get into power. And of course, most of you might know that even if the AfD is not really part of the coalition, if they just tolerate a coalition of other parties, then that election, and that was the case in Thuringia, for example, I reported from Erfurt, then Angela Merkel said that this vote has to be repeated, even though it was a proper democratic vote in the Landtag in Erfurt, in the state parliament. So you see, we have a one-party system, and all these parties, if you go through their programs, these big bloc parties, when you have the CDU, the SPD, the Green Party, they all agree on all vital fields of politics. They only differ in degrees, not in a fundamental way. They all want more migration. They all want open borders. They all want these windmills and these solar panels and electric cars. So they want to destroy the German economy. They want to make electricity and mobility artificially more expensive, and they want to make it scarce. They want a Germany in which the normal working man's family cannot afford electricity or heating or personal mobility, and they are paying 80% plus taxes, and that tax money goes to foreigners in Germany and foreigners abroad. And German working families have to pay for non-European millionaires and billionaires then. The money is of course taken directly out of their paycheck and directly transferred to foreign powers. That is the Germany that they want, and they all agree on the, let's say the pandemic stuff and all these measures. They all agree on this stuff. There is no difference. The only difference I see is that under Merkel or Kohl or all the other CDU guys, for example, they were a little more reluctant to give our money to other European powers like France or Italy. So they also promoted austerity in the EU. That means that German taxpayers should not, in a major way at least, be responsible for the debt of other European countries. The debt union, that is what Italy and France want. And the CDU, well, they weren't really opposing it, and they were also voting in favor of it, but they wanted it to be a little slower than the SPD. So this is what I mean. They both agree on it, but they differ in degrees. So if you're an accelerationist, for example, you should vote for the Green Party. You should vote for Die Linke. You should vote for the FDP, for the CDU, because they will now accelerate, of course, this transfer of German taxpayers' money to very wealthy groups and individuals abroad. And Mr. Scholz, for example, the candidate and now acting vice chancellor of the SPD party, I talked about him before. So when this pandemic aid package was ratified in the European Union, he said that, oh, you think this is just a one-time thing now because of a health crisis? No, I want to make this the norm right now. Yeah, this is the same Mr. Scholz who said when he was asked in an interview if he knows what 1 liter of gasoline fuel costs right now in Germany. You know what this SPD, so a socialist workers party guy, what he was saying, he said, well, actually, I haven't gotten gas at a gas station myself in many years now. So to tell you the truth, I have no idea what gasoline costs. So he's basically a filthy rich guy who has a driver and is driven around by taxpayers' money, don't forget about that, and he is so out of touch and so far removed from the German workers that his party was supposed to represent, just like the Labour Party in the UK, for example, that this is absolutely insane. And this is the guy that Germans applaud for and that Germans want to be the next chancellor. But I tell you, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter. I mean, if the SPD rules now with the Commie Party and the Green Party, so something that we call Rot-Rot-Grün, red-red-green, yeah, I mean, they will burn through the taxpayers' money faster. And maybe if the CDU with the FDP and the Greens or the Social Democrats rules or whatever, yeah, they will still keep our borders open and they will still waste our taxpayers' money and they will directly transfer it to foreign powers. Maybe not as quick as this leftist coalition, but still faster than it is being done right now, even though that is hard to imagine because it is already being done at a record rate that 5 years ago nobody could have imagined. Alright, so this is the situation, this is what the polls are telling us, and I gave you some background information as well. And yeah, of course, I'm gonna go vote tomorrow just to show to Germany and to the world that not everybody agrees with that, and there is one party, of course, that you can vote for that is in parliament and that is doing excellent opposition work. Of course, this party is not perfect, but at least their party program is, yeah, in my eyes, in my opinion, very, very good. They are against all those things that I just talked about. They want to leave the European Union. They want secure borders. They want to end the forced fee for the public broadcasting, which is just state propaganda, and many other things that I agree with. So even though they will not be in government, my voice or my vote will be counted. I hope actually. More about this in the next video, of course. And so I think that every vote for the AfD is at least a display of the fact that there are still people in Germany who disagree with the current regime. Let me know what you think about that. Servus, Kameraden.